Hey guys, Casual Crono here. Continuing with my character development series, I wanted to spend some time on Minalca. I know she's not a character that everyone has, but I remember when I finally did pull her, because I'd seen her used in so many videos on YouTube, and I was like, yes, now I can obliterate enemies, bosses, I will be a god. And I prepped up Minalca how I thought she needed to be prepped up. I went out and she did kind of blah damage. And it took me really about a month to kind of figure her out. If you look at some of my September and October Super Boss teams, but I had Minalca at that point, and you could see that my lineup was changing around a little bit. Occasionally I had Isuka ES in there, occasionally I had Aisha, and so forth. And I think I don't want to say I'm an expert on her by any means, but at the same time, I have gotten her to the point where she is hitting the damage cap, and I kind of understand her abilities now. So, let's say that you get lucky and you pull Minalca, and you're like, yes, I can destroy things. You're as excited as I was when I pulled her, because you also get the sidekick, Tetra, who is a very awesome sidekick. So, Minalca. Gearing-wise, when you get a new character, any new character, whether it's her or anyone else, I always recommend looking through the skills and actually reading them. And for Minalca, the skill that she uses the most, at least when I use her, is a skill called Rip and Tear. Rip and Tear pierces barriers. So all those super bosses that had barriers, 20 stacks, 50 stacks, 99 stacks of a barrier, it doesn't matter. Minalca just ignores that completely. So Rip and Tear is definitely a very valuable skill. And then it says it inflicts pain. So I don't need a separate person to set pain. Minalca can set pain herself. She also gets the benefit of having an elemental break fire. So she gets to weaken an enemy fire damage-wise with 3 stacks of elemental break. So far this Rip and Tear thing is sounding really awesome. And then it says, strength is increased based on the number of stacked tributum, max 20. So what in the world is this tributum thing? I apparently want them because it increases her strength. And I skim through, is there any skills that I have to cast to give me tributum? No. Okay, so if I check out abilities, I notice that every turn start, all party members will take 20% of their hit points in damage, and it stacks tributum on the user. So basically, what that means is, at the start of each round, every single person in the front row will lose 20% of their life. And if you have 3,788, that means you lose about 700 health. If you have a tank that has like 6,000 health, they would lose 1,200 of it. And all that damage combines and gives her stacks of this tributum. And what this means is the more hit points the rest of your team has, and the more hit points Minalca has, the stronger she's going to become. There is a cap. I believe, if I remember the wiki right, if you take more than 20,000 damage per turn, she caps out on the stacks. Basically, 50 stacks of tributum is the most. Her sidekick, Tetra, restores 20% of health. So he is very custom made for Minalca. She takes 20% of health and he restores it when it's his turn. So he also can revive party members, which is a very rare ability. I believe Mario AS has a revive skill, and aside from them two, I'm not sure if anyone else does. And then he also has an aura. When hit points reach 80% or below, that character, their max hit points and mana points go up. So what does that mean? Well, let's take a look. I'm going to challenge one dummy.
Pray that death finds you quick.
On the first turn, Minalca's going to hurt herself. And you'll see that she dropped down to 3,000 health, basically. And you'll see that she now has this little icon here and 17 stacks of tributum. If I cast Rip and Tear, it will attack the test dummy. It inflicts pain, and there's the elemental break. And then Tetra will restore her health, and because she reached 80%, his aura kicked in, and now her maximum health is something much higher. You'll see on this turn that after the 20% damage, she now has 3,788 health instead of 3,000. And instead of 17 stacks of tributum, she now has 19, which means her Rip and Tear is going to be slightly more damaging. See, she has 4,700 total health until she gets hurt. So we're just going to finish up Rip and Tearing, and then we're going to discuss her gear. But basically what we figured out is the more health the front line has, the more stacks of tributum she's going to get, and therefore the more damage she's going to do. Already she's doing like 1.9 million damage per swing, so not too bad. There is one extra ability that she has. It's this destruction skill. Basically, you'll notice it says in lethal mode, she does a slash attack 5 times and increases her strength times 50. She also deploys dazzling slash stance and awakens the zone. So how in the world do you use that? What is this lethal mode? If Tetra uses his reincarnation spell, Minalca enters lethal mode, so she is not in lethal mode until he casts reincarnation. Now she is in lethal mode. And if you check her status, you'll see that her power has increased by 50. I guess that's the only thing that kind of indicates that is. Yeah, it's the little lunatic looking symbol. So she is currently in lethal mode. That means this destruction attack will do 5 hits, and she will deploy dazzling slash stance and awaken the zone. Now, is it as good as Rip and Tear? It doesn't barrier pierce. It doesn't do an elemental break fire. So we can look at the damage it does, but it's really not that much different than her Rip and Tear damage, at least while she's by herself. So she did 53 million damage just by herself and Tetra. So the question is, what gear works for her? So we know we need gear that improves damage. Elpis weapons, as always, with their overthrow and their guaranteed critical rate, are an excellent choice. The overthrow alone makes the Elpis sword probably her best weapon. There are other weapons like Dryad's sword, where her critical damage is higher than normal. Mujima also has overthrow. Void sword gives her a 100% critical rate and improves her type attack, and so forth. So you have choices, but if you have the Elpis sword, that's probably the best thing to use. Armor-wise, you kind of have some choices here. As you know, if she improves her health, she will do more damage. So you could give her pieces of armor that actually improve her health, like the subspace bracelet, tempered bracelet. The higher it goes, I think it goes up to, I think it's 300 health, something like that. So there are pieces of armor that will improve her health. However, the Elpis bangle not only improves her health, but it also improves her damage when her hit points are under 80%. Well, remember, at the beginning of every turn, she loses 20% of her health. So that means pretty much at any given point, she's usually under 80%, which makes the Elpis bangle probably the best piece of armor for her. It gives her more health, and it improves her damage. Now, that said, because the health is based on how much shadow points she has, and I only have 19 points, it's not really boosting her health that much. In fact, if I just remove it, She has 3444 health, and if I equip the Elpis Bangle, she goes up about 340-ish points. So it's basically a 340 hit point bonus, and you get the bonus damage. For her badge, as usual, anything that would improve power, anything that would improve type attack, anything that would improve damage by 20%. I've found in general, I played around with a few of these, like I used the pain badge, which improves her damage by 20%. I played with the type attack stuff. Improving her hit points is an option. You could give her the HP 2000 badge from Toto Theater World, but since her Tributum stacks are based on everyone in the front row, and I usually run with a tank with a lot of hit points, she herself doesn't need to have that much health. So I tend to gravitate more towards badges that give her just raw power. So I gave her a Power Plus Speed Halved badge from Toto's Theater World. She gets a tremendous amount of power, and her speed drops, which usually means she goes last in the lineup. I'm totally fine with that, because I want the rest of the lineup to go ahead and cast buffs, to cast debuffs, and so forth, to make her as powerful as possible when it's finally her turn. The one thing you do have to consider, Tetra. Tetra's speed is, let's see, let's get rid of his gear. Tetra's speed is 159 without any equipment, which means he could go before Minalca. Right now, Minalca's speed is only 130, so he could actually go first and then heal her, and then she'd lose all those bonuses for having her health, below 80%. So that's the reason some of the Sidekick equipment reduces speed. The Soothing Bell does, and I'm pretty sure there was one more that did, but maybe I'm just maybe I'm thinking of some of the gear. I don't see it offhand, but I don't have all the equipment anyway. But Soothing Bell reduces speed and improves his heals, so that's kind of a win-win. Tetra goes last, will heal up the whole team, and has a bonus to the healing, and does a little magic attack as well. So he also restores all statuses, so if during the round my team gets poisoned, pained, stunned, confused, whatever, if he goes last, all those statuses go away. So it's a good idea to try and get Tetra to basically have a very low speed, and the Soothing Bell is one way to do that, possibly the only way. Because Minalca sets pain, it makes sense Grasta-wise to give her 3 pain Grastas, almost a kind of a given her skill set and everything. And so that's exactly what I did. She has 3 pain Grastas. She has Power of Agony, Power of Pain, and Infernal Power of Pain. The Power of Agony sword improves pain strength by 30% and gives her a little bonus to power and luck. It's upgraded with Bullseye, which means when I'm not using another force, her damage is increased by 50%. 1 Power of Pain sword has the MP consumption attack. It increases damage, but also uses up my mana faster. And then Infernal Power of Pain came from Geru's Astral Archive Tome. It is also another pain modifier, but it also boosts fire-type attack damage by 20%. And Minalca's skills are all fire types, including Rip and Tear. So Infernal Power of Pain makes complete sense to me to give to Minalca. So that is the gear, that is the Grasta, that is the setup, and that is the sidekick. Since we're talking about sidekicks, there's a few other sidekicks that could pair up nicely. Kurobo, for example, has an aura. Whenever anyone takes fire damage, their power and intellect is reduced by 25%. Rip and Tear is a fire attack. So that means if I have Kurobo, and he could be in the back row, because auras will still take effect if they're a sub-sidekick, but every time she uses Rip and Tear, well, really the first time she uses Rip and Tear, the aura will kick in, and whatever boss I'm fighting will have a permanent power and intellect reduction of 25%. Now, one catch with Kurobo, it affects anybody, the enemy or allies. So if you're fighting a boss that does fire damage to your team, your characters, including Minalca, will also have a power and int reduction. So use Kurobo if the enemy does not do fire damage, or if you just need to reduce the enemy's output. Gunts is another character whose aura can be of help. It activates when the AF gauge is empty, so if you blow it on the very first turn, for example, all party member stats increase by 20%, which means Minalca's power also increases by 20%. It only affects allies, it does not affect enemies, so there's no harm in using Gunts and activating his aura. He is a lot more helpful in a Thunder team in the front row, but for the back row, his aura can be pretty helpful. And you might think to yourself, Mini-Mander, he does fire-type magic attack, and he boosts wind resistance, but neither of those really help Minalca. So even though he's a fire elemental, he's probably not the best choice for Minalca. I would say go with Kurobo for your sub-sidekick if you want to reduce the enemy's damage to your team, or use Gunts if you plan on using the AF bar at all, because that will improve all of your team's stats. According to the wiki, Minalca has a few categories. She is a sword user, she is a glutton, she is a fire user. And if you check the glutton personality page, there aren't that many gluttons. And as usual, since she's a sword user, I try to look for gluttons who are sword users first. And the only one in this category is Violet. So let's switch to sword users and go to Violet. Violet is a free character from the Persona collabs, and she is able to hold that Almighty Power Glutton by having Violet in the party, and if you have this Almighty Power Grasta, she can improve Minalca's damage by 25%. The other things I have equipped on her don't necessarily help. I have the Enhance if Max HP sword Grasta equipped. However, as you know, Minalca takes damage, so unless Tetra goes first, or unless somehow Minalca gets healed, this Grasta kind of is pointless, but I have it equipped anyway, just in case. There are rare occasions where she actually does have her health at max. And then I didn't have a good choice for another one, so she has a proficiency debuff resistance. But that's because of my other back partner, Aldo. Aldo is a sword user, Aldo is a fire user. Aldo might also be a very good character to move into the front row, especially if you have him Stellar Awakened and everything. He's gotten a lot more powerful. That said, he is also great for holding Grasta if you only have a level 60 Aldo or something like that. He has Robust Body Sword, which improves the health of all sword users by 300. And as you know, Minalca gets stronger the more health she has. So Aldo just gave her 300 more health. You can see now she has 4,000 health. Other Grasta that are helpful in the back row, the Enhance at Low HP Sword. When Minalca's HP is at 80% or less, she does 40% more damage. This Grasta is probably in effect 99% of the time when you're using Minalca. So if you have a back row character that's a sword user, they don't have to be a fire sword user, any sword user will work. But if you give them this Grasta, Minalca's damage is going to go up. And then Power of Inferno Sword. It improves all sword users' fire type attacks by 30%. So these two Grasta are pretty much in effect at all times for Minalca. And Robust Body just simply helps her with her Tributum stacks. So they are good back row characters, and as I said, Aldo could even be used in the front row these days. If we keep him in the back row, who do we put in the front row? Well, Minalca sets pain herself, so we don't need a pain setter. She's a fire user, so it'd be nice to have a fire zone. If you're using free characters, Aisha is a great character to use for a fire zone. She has the skill Flame's Serenade, which deploys Fire Stance. So other abilities she has, when she's in Fire Stance, she can improve the party's power and other things by 50% with Eternal Fantasia. And while she's in Fire Stance, Jewel Concerto, if she uses that on the enemy, not only does the team get a regen, but the enemy's fire resistance reduces by 50%. So all three of these abilities can help Minalca. She reduces the enemy's fire resistance, she improves Minalca's damage, her power, by 50%, and she sets Fire Zone. And remember how I said that if your party's hit points are high, you don't really need Minalca's to be that high? Well, Aisha can be built with high health. I gave her the Subspace Ring for 300 extra health. She has the Life Spring Badge, which improves her health by 1,000. You could also give her Toto Theater's World badges, but I didn't want to affect her magic points or her speed, so... Her Dreamy Staff gives her continual regen, so, and a little bit of resistance. So it's a way just to kind of stay alive. And for Grasta, since she's not a damage dealer, I just gave her 3 Grasta that each one gives 300 health. So she has 900 health from Grasta. You'll notice that none of these are activated, or upgraded, I guess I should say. So as long as you activate it enough to get that 300 health benefit, it really doesn't matter if you keep activating it for the abilities, unless you just really want the abilities. So Aisha has 5,500 health. Let's get a tank in here. Now, the best tank in the world for a fire team and a sword team would be Radius AS, but not everyone has her. So instead, we can pull out good old Prai. He's not quite a free character, but he appears so often in pools that chances are you have Prai. If you can get him to 5 stars, he's actually a fairly decent tank, all in all. So, as far as his skills, he is a fire user, so a fire zone would improve his damage, not that he's really used for damage. However, he does have Noble Flames, which reduces type resistance, and he has Holy Light, which also reduces type resistance. So 2 of his abilities can actually reduce an enemy's resistance. He also has a few things that can heal, and if you've never used him before, he has Indulgence. It's this massive 250 mana skill, but basically, at the start of the turn, before anyone else goes, he activates it, and no matter what kind of incoming damage comes in, he will take all of it. So, and he'll live. It just simply stuns him on the next turn. So he can do it once, take 500,000 damage, he'll live, and he'll be stunned the next turn. So it's a way to buy a little bit of time. Since he's a tank, I gave him stuff that gives him HP. So I gave him an HP badge from Toto's Theater World, and Grasta-wise, again, I just gave him 300 hit point Grastas, and his health is at 6,500. The rest of his gear, if you can find more gear that gives health, great, but, kind of whatever for him. So the last character. There's really good characters, and I'm going to show you a really stacked team in a moment, but I was trying to find other characters that you might have that aren't really useful all the time, and this one isn't a free character. I thought I'd break out Milsha. Milsha, actually, I'm just going to switch them. Milsha has a skill. She's a singer, and one of her songs, and I'm totally going to mispronounce that because I mispronounce lots of things in this game, Tragudi Espida, perhaps? It has the effect of basically giving everyone a lunatic status, which improves their damage. And also, any intake damage is reduced by 50% as well. So it's defensive in minded and offensive in minded. The rest of her abilities don't really matter to me too much because while she's singing, she can't cast any of them. But this whole lunatic risk taker skill can improve her damage. Again, I want her to also have a lot of health. I gave her another HP 2000, 50% mana reduction badge. I gave her a tempered bracelet, It's not maxed out. I think it's a +7 tempered bracelet, but it does give her health. Her weapon doesn't really matter. And Grasta-wise, I could give her 300 HP or Grasta, but I pulled her from my Thunder team, and I didn't really want to mess with all the Grasta because the UI is really annoying. So you could just pretend I could give her an extra 900 health here if I wanted to, and then she would have around 6,400 health. So this team is one I came up with. As I said, Aldo is pretty good. You could probably put him in the front row and have a really powerful fire team as well. So if you don't have Minalca, don't stress about it. And then you just have to find someone else in the background to hold Aldo's Grasta while you gave him probably Pain Grasta as well. So let's see how this team functions on the test dummy. Alright, so you'll see now all 4 members took damage, and if you look down here, she has 50 stacks of Tributum. It appears right there. So the total amount of damage was probably close to around whatever it needed to be, and she's maxed out on Tributum. So she's going to rip and tear. We're going to drop Fire Zone. She will go ahead and start singing and give everyone Risk Taker. And he's just going to chill. Let's have him do Holy Light first. Why not? You'll notice that her Rip and Tear is going to be a lot stronger right now. See, she's already doing 1 to 3 million, or was that 19 to 30 million? That might have been 30 million. The numbers go so quick I can't quite tell, but that's 50 stacks of Tributum really helps. And you'll notice that Tetra's Aura kicked in. They all have higher max health, and so she's going to have 50 Tributum every single turn. Alright, we have Minalca singing. We'll go ahead and hit Noble Flames. We're going to buff the team's party by 50%, and Minalca's going to rip and tear again, just because she can. Now you see Rip and Tear doing 63 million, or yeah, something like that. She goes twice as long as the boss has more than 50% health. Now that the boss has reached 50% health, she won't do 4 total attacks, she's only going to go back down to 2. So let's see, we'll do Holy Light again. This time Aisha can cast Blaze Concerto. This will reduce the boss's fire resistance, so we'll have a fire resistance debuff and the elemental fire break debuff. And I'm just ripping and tearing with Minalca. That's all I'm doing with her. So there's the resist. Minalca just did a lot more. Tetra is keeping the team alive. Aisha's Fire Zone is restoring a little bit of mana each turn as well, which is nice. So we'll do another Rip and Tear. At this point, all of Aisha's abilities are 5 turns long, so it doesn't really matter what I use from this point forward with her. So we'll just rebuff the team, and we'll do Noble Flames with him. Why not? I'm not sure if you can tell over the game music and everything, but it's raining here, so if you hear some really distant rain, that's not you, that's me. Alright, last turn. We'll do Holy Light again. She'll go back to singing for Risk Taker. She'll just do something and Rip and Tear. And so, Minalca aside, this mostly free team just did 954 million damage on the test dummy. So that is a lot of damage. And mind you, that's barrier piercing type damage as well. So any enemies that have a barrier, doesn't really matter. Minalca just kind of ignores it and will do that massive damage. You might not have the whopping 20,000 damage that Prai is doing, but Minalca doesn't care. So that was with Tetra as the sidekick. So for a test of this team, I decided to try a true manifest fight. So I replaced Violet with Suzette, so I don't have the Glutton Grasta in effect anymore. Sidekick-wise, I stuck with Tetra and Kurobo. Kurobo is basically a free sidekick, so I figured people would have more access to him than Guns. So, with that in mind, I have Minalca, Aisha, Milsha, Prai, Aldo, and I have Suzette, and we are going to face her true manifest fight. So this is not the level 10 fight, this is the level 11 fight, so to speak. So, she's going to rip and tear like she always does. We're going to deploy Fire Zone. We are going to start singing. And Prai is going to do his Noble Flames.
How's this? Behold, the ancient despair.
And Minalca, because it's over 50%, goes twice and goes down to her first HP stopper. Now we have round 2. On round 2, we're going to blow the AF bar and bring Suzette down to her second HP stopper. During the AF bar, we're going to work in a Sunburst Fantasia to boost her power, and then we'll probably just spam Blaze Concerto after that. Minalca's going to rip and tear the entire time, and Prai is just going to do Noble Flames again. You can see that the boss is already down to the next HP stopper, but I thought there was a chance that maybe with 4 characters they might attack. They weren't doing much damage because of Milsha's singing. But as you can see, they can do some damage. So here on the final turn, we don't have the AF bar to work with, and we have 5 Suzettes that want to kill me. This is a perfect time for Prai to use his Indulgence. We're going to Blaze Concerto again, because all of these are 5 turns each, and none are really used up, so why not? She is going to rip and tear. Because Prai is casting Indulgence, he cannot die, and he's going to take all damage. So I basically have 1 free round, and I'm pretty sure Minalca's DPS is going to take down the True Manifest. So you can see Prai is getting hurt, but that means the rest of the team is living. And there goes Minalca. And she took down one of the clones as well, just for good measure. So a mostly free team taking down Suzette's True Manifest. I hear you. You might be saying, well, that's great, Crono, but I don't have Milsha, so that team doesn't quite work for me. Well, as I mentioned, we can use Aldo in the front row. He's a pretty decent character at this point in the game. So if we have him in the front row, we can put Violet back in the back row, and that way we have the Glutton. Now, that said, Milsha was helping a lot with defenses. So we don't have really any skills across any characters that help with defense. So, and as far as Aldo goes, I'm going to try and avoid using the stellar abilities like Starworm Slash. I've just given him Swift Cut, X Slash, and Volcano Blade. So let's see how this round works. Again, this is Suzette's True Mastery fight for Dark Heavenly Tears. It is the level 11 fight. So because we don't have defenses, we're going to go ahead and cast Indulgence on the first turn and set up the team. So we are going to improve damage for 3 rounds. We're going to deploy Fire Zone, And we are going to rip and tear because that's what we do with Minalca.
Behold, the ancient despair.
So right now, Prai is taking all the damage. What this means, however, is that on turn 2, Prai is going to be stunned. You'll see he's down to 1 hit point. Now he's restored some from Tetra, which is great, but now we don't have him for round 2. So let's try blowing the AF bar on round 2 and seeing if that helps any. Alright, because the team had such high health, they were able to survive the attack. And now Prai is back. As you can probably imagine, a single rip and tear is going to win this fight. The catch is, can she get off a rip and tear in time before they attack her? But since we have Prai, it's not an issue. We cast Indulgence. And let's just, it doesn't really matter what we cast at this point, so.
Divine punishment.
Behold, the ancient despair.
So Prai is taking all the damage right now. And there goes Minalca. And there you go, a free team plus Prai taking down Suzette's true mastery. Or true manifest, not mastery. So that is how Minalca can work with a team. The final group I'm going to show you is my Minalca Super Boss team, and that way I can showcase, this team is good. It can definitely function and get you some true manifests. It can get you some mid-level bosses down. But I can also show you the team that I use for some of the most difficult content. Alright, the next boss I'd like to showcase is the Mysterious Chaos Ogre, Hard. He is a level 10 super boss. So I'm breaking out the big guns for this fight. And I realize that you all may not have all these characters. But again, this is a video to showcase Minalca, to show what she's capable of, and if nothing else, maybe this gives you some idea of what characters you can collect working towards this, basically give you a goal. Minalca herself is mostly equipped the same way. Instead of the Elpis bangle, she has the Dryad's bangle instead, and that actually is going to reduce her power, but that's because I have Radius AS and I want her to have the Elpis bangle. Radius has almost 11,000 health. I have Iffy as part of the team, and she's my pain and poison setter, as well as she also can buff the team, debuff the enemy, and so forth. I don't technically need a pain setter since I have Minalca, but she is pretty awesome with her lunatic and everything else. So, and then I have Sukiya Alter, who does have an HP badge and everything, so she has 6,000 health. And she can set, she's basically Aisha on steroids. She can set Fire Zone. With Surging Blaze, she can improve the team's the team's power and the team's intellect. And she can also awaken the zone to make the zone even stronger, as well as reducing fire resistance. So she has basically the same 3 abilities that Aisha has, only she can also awaken the zone. And then we have Minalca. Back row we have Aldo and Violet. Sidekick wise we have Tetra and Kurobo. Now we are in Arat, and I do not have any equipment upgraded, anything like that, so it's not like I have a lot of help on this fight. Alright, we're going to lure the enemy, and we want Mysterious Chaos Ogre hard. Now, one reason I wanted to showcase this particular fight was because the Chaos Ogre has a barrier. And I haven't really been able to show you barrier piercing yet. Now, a few things you'll notice. The team took more damage than usual, and that is because this particular fight, it does more damage. It does a 50% damage at the beginning, I think, of every turn, or maybe every 2 turns or so. Anyway, that doesn't really bother me too much. We're going to rip and tear, just like always. You'll notice that her Tributum stacks are only at 35. We're going to overwhelm. We are going to reduce his power, and we are going to deploy Fire Stance. You'll notice even with the barrier, she's causing damage to the Chaos Ogre. And now that we have some health back, she should stack a few more Tributum stacks. Oh, maybe not. 3 less. Alright, she's going to rip and tear again. We are going to Surging Blaze. We are going to Nocturnal Procession. Both of those are basically power buffs. And we are going to Overwhelm again. So now Rip and Tear should do a decent amount of damage on the Chaos Ogre. Next round. We're going to just continue ripping and tearing. We're going to, this time, reduce fire resistance and awaken the zone. And at this point, both of these buffs are lasting a little while, so we'll just go ahead and cast this one for fun, and we're going to overwhelm again. You notice Minalca took the boss down to about 10% health, and the boss got extremely mad. It says the Chaos Ogre prepares for one last attack. So we have Awakened Fire Zone. We have 3 stacks of Overwhelm, so I can Prominence Purge, I can Chivalry, I can do whatever I want. He's still enraged, so it doesn't matter. We'll cast Pain again. We'll cast that again to reduce his speed. It's not going to matter as long as Rip and Tear goes first. We are good. And I could even blow the AF bar to guarantee that it goes first. But there you go. So that is Minalca in the hands of a very capable fire team. Is this the best possible combination for her? Probably not. She also, I haven't really made any use of any type of slash zone, slash attack, anything like that. So I've pretty much stuck with fire. So anyway, that's one way that you can build a team around Minalca. Her main concepts, the rest of her teammates, and technically her, if you can actually swing it, should have high health. The more health your team has, the stronger Minalca becomes. So try to prioritize giving your team members health. Just the front row, not the back row. As far as Grasta, the Glutton, Grasta, and anything like Robust Body Sword, Enhance at Low HP, Power of Inferno Sword, all of those are good Grasta to give her. The things that enhance her damage at max health, not so much, because she's rarely at max health. Tetra is a sidekick custom made for her. If you have her at 5-star, you will have Tetra as well. And Kurobo and Gunts could both be decent sub-sidekicks, at least of the ones that I have. And as far as her gear, technically the Elpis Bangle is the best for her damage, but really as long as you boost her power, and if you can get the Elpis Sword, more power to you. And in that last fight, you saw how Rip and Tear ignored that boss's barrier stacks. He had, I think, 35 barrier stacks to begin with, and Minalca just kept doing damage, pretending like they weren't there. So that is a huge benefit of Minalca and her Rip and Tear skill. So, if you just happen to randomly pull Minalca and have no idea where to start, you can go through and make a decent starting crew with free characters. You're not free, go away. Or you've now seen a team that just wiped out a level 10 super boss in, 4 turns? So if you have some of the stronger characters, that those are reasons why a lot of people will use like their SDE on Iffy, for example. Iffy, even though she's not a fire user or a sword user, was a great complement to Minalca. So anyway, I hope this gives you some ideas on how to build your Minalca if you're lucky enough to get her. And I hope you do, because she is an awesome character. So anyway, Casual Crono signing out.